Today, we're going to talk about how to learn like a hacker, the core mindsets, skills, and beliefs we need, and why being a hacker is the way forward. The longer I live, the more I reflect, the more I come to the realization that school didn't really teach me that much. I mean, sure, I learned some amount of project management, I learned some amount of time management, and some facts, figures, and how to look things up in Quizlet. But in reflecting on the times in my life when I've really learned things, I've done it myself. I'm going to advocate for a method of learning that's largely self-directed. It seems like a lot to tackle and a big task to take on. But if you really look back and reflect on the times in your life when you've learned things, you've done it yourself. You were the one who solved the problems. You were the one that did the work. You were the one that figured things out when they got tough, when they didn't seem to make sense. If you really think about it, even in the traditional model, it was still always up to you. Up to you to write the essays. Up to you to do the creative thinking, the problem solving. So really, not much has changed. We're just approaching it more skillfully. We have a bigger toolbox with more sophisticated and consistent strategies and tactics. In tackling self-education, a big concern is usually the curriculum. What program do I follow or curriculum do I learn from? Really, this is important, but I think it's also important to acknowledge that most schools don't really have a curriculum to speak of. Education systems that aren't functioning pathologically eventually all aim to produce autonomous learners, autonomous individuals who will eventually master their chosen field of study and go on to make their own advancements and their own contributions to the field. Innovation is a big buzzword these days. I actually met a girl the other day, junior in college I believe, who was majoring in innovation. Which, nice girl, not to knock her, but it's pretty laughable as a major. The irony here is that for as modern as that term sounds, the educational system that I think is most true and time-tested and capable of producing learners who are able to identify problems and come up with innovative solutions is the apprenticeship process. In the apprenticeship process, acolytes will enter possessing not even the most elementary skills, the most basic rudiments of the profession. They'll undergo a period of training and education that lasts over half a decade, actually doing the thing, gaining real skills and abilities in their chosen craft. Then exit that period as masters of that craft, able to work with the materials, able to operate autonomously in their chosen environment, and more importantly, able to add something additional, something unique and not yet existing in whatever field of study they've chosen. Teachers don't really exist because lecture, the modality that was meant to be an adjunct, a supplement, has now become our primary modality of transmitting information from one generation to the next. Sitting there and telling people things, talking at them for hours on end, as opposed to having them do it and then gently correcting when you see somebody start to veer off course. Now, under the apprenticeship model, I would be actually working in the business and developing practical, real-world skills for whatever my chosen profession would be. Let's say I'm a potter's apprentice. I wouldn't just be learning about the technicalities of pottery, putting clay on the wheel and spinning it, throwing it in the oven. I'd be sent out on errands. My master might tell me, hey, Courtney, I want you to go out and pick up 50 pounds of clay from our distributor. I'd go there and I'd have to learn how to interpret this invoice sheet. I'd have to learn how to interpret what kinds of clay we're ordering and why. I'd have to learn how to interact with clients and suppliers. I'd have to learn all the things that are adjunct and ancillary to the business so that eventually I'll be able to run one myself. And I'd be learning how to throw on the wheel. And I'd be learning how to get my reps in and how to actually master those elements of the craft that are going to make me able to open a business one day. In the modern world, outside the skilled trades, carpentry, electricians, welders, very few professions have an intact apprenticeship model. There are some other professions we consider to be white collar, medicine, law, that have elements of the apprenticeship phase still intact. But most of us graduate through university and would never be able to open our own business just had the knowledge that we gained through our lectures. We might know those facts, those figures. We might have some amount of knowledge of the technical aspects of our field, but we wouldn't really know how the profession actually works. Of the professions that still do have some form of apprenticeship, many of them are dominated by politicking, gamesmanship, and what Eric Weinstein of the Portal podcast refers to as sharp elbows over sharp minds. For better or worse, trust in these traditional educational institutions has never been lower than it is right now. And I'm sure there are many reasons for this, but it's at least in part due to the waning value of an education received through these institutions. In the new world we're heading towards, I think the way forward is going to be one of educational autonomy, the ability to independently bring yourself up to speed in a new subject, whether it's completely new or adjacent to something you do already, in a brief period of time. This is where a hacker mindset comes in. The ability to navigate outside the walls of the institution. The ability to independently and autonomously solve novel and interesting problems is going to be the way forward as our world gets less and less predictable. This guy, Eric Raymond, published an essay called How to Become a Hacker, in which he outlines not only what the word hacker means, but also the mindset and skills it takes to become one. Usually the term hacker is used to describe someone who breaks into other people's computers, finds a way to get into password-protected accounts, or otherwise nefariously exploits vulnerabilities in systems to the detriment of other people. Raymond makes sure to illustrate the difference between hackers and crackers, saying that hackers build things, crackers break them. Just because you're able to break something or break into something does not by any means mean that you can build something of your own, and probably just makes you a dick. Raymond lays out 5 pillars of a hacker attitude. 1, the world is full of fascinating problems waiting to be solved. 2, no problem should ever have to be solved twice. 3, boredom and drudgery are evil. 4, freedom is good. And 5, attitude is no substitute for competence. The bitterness of a cup of coffee, the soreness you feel after a hard workout. These are things that are incredibly unpleasant the first few times you experience them, but eventually, through time, experience, and repetition, become the very reason you seek that thing out in the first place. Having this kind of attitude and this kind of mindset requires that you take an enjoyment in pushing yourself intellectually and pushing the limits of what and how you can learn. If you're not currently the kind of person that gets enjoyment from that kind of thing, you can become one. The same way you probably became a person who enjoyed the bitterness of a cup of dark coffee or the soreness associated with their long workout. I'm extremely prone to frustration myself. Finding a way to enjoy the process and enjoy walking the path before your technical ability is commensurate with a level of production that's up to your internal standards of quality is the key to walking this path long enough to actually gain some sort of technical skill and produce something that's worth consuming. I once heard this Radiolab episode that described intelligence as the ability to operate in problem space. Now, the kind of problem solving that we're talking about here is not the kind that comes with answers in the back of the book. And so it's going to take a certain level of self-efficacy in order to be able to navigate that problem space. We'll be dealing with incomplete information without the skills or the knowledge to tackle the problems that we face. And to thrive here, we're going to have to learn how to be okay with this. We won't always know what we need to know in order to tackle the challenges we face. But fostering a core belief that we can break that challenge into small pieces, solve just one small part of it, learn from doing so, and repeat that process until we've solved the entire thing, we'll be able to succeed where others fear to tread. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. AI is already making shitty, low effort, low scale output obsolete. And the growing prevalence of complacency in our society only stands to make those who can show up with intelligence and consistency look all the more like rock stars. To waste such a precious resource on filling out the same Excel spreadsheet again and again, or search for those same 3 files you need every time you handle this new kind of client, is to throw away one of the most precious gifts that we as a species have access to, that could be better spent on tackling some new, novel, and interesting task. If your intelligence is precious, which it is, and we're all on this rock together, which we are, then the thinking time of you and everyone else is too precious to waste on solving the same problems again and again and again, and would be better used on tackling the new and interesting ones. If you find yourself filling out the same form repeatedly, spending an hour and a half at the grocery store looking for the right dish soap, or solving the same issue again and again, start engineering a solution. Learn just enough Python to write an autofill script. Start using Amazon subscriptions to auto-deliver things you know you purchase super often. Start creating protocols and checklists to eliminate redundancy, maximize efficiency, and get repetitive tasks, if they need to be done, finished in minimal time. Get in the habit of looking for ways to avoid wasting your precious brain power, whether it's creating Notion templates that ensure any project you start is already structured and partially completed, or using a text expander that takes 2 keystrokes instead of 200 to write that email you have to send in response to the same issue again and again. Look at and learn from the solutions that other hackers have come up with. Share the ones with your community that you've come up with. Pay it forward. In the rising tide lifts all ships. If work is boring, stupid drudgery, then it's probably a waste of a creative person's time. And it's probably a sign that you're not doing all you can for either yourself or for society at large. This is not just a neutral decision. It's a waste of a precious resource for you and everyone else, and therefore is an evil that must be exterminated. Automate away the boring and low-value pieces of a task where possible, unless you're making a conscious decision to keep doing that part of the task as a mind-clearing exercise or because it's important for skill building. Just make sure this is a conscious decision on your part. A sharp, clear thinker should never be forced into a situation where they are compelled to engage in boring, drudgerous work. Hackers are by definition outside-the-box thinkers. They flout conventional wisdom and look for ways to do away with arbitrary and self-limiting assumptions. As such, they are inherently anti-authoritarian. The way they see it, anyone who can boss you around can stop you from pursuing your curiosity and can smother your ability to address and solve the problems that are truly important. Authoritarians deal in secrecy and censorship. Hackers deal in open source, mutually beneficial cooperation. Act on this belief and refuse to bend to the will of anyone trying to use deception and coercion to get you to do what they want. Not all authority is authoritarian. Authority based on competence is a good thing when followed willingly. It's compulsion and the instinct to try to seize control that we must defy. Now, we've covered the hacker's attitude in work and life, but this attitude is useless if it's not backed by competence. Now, this essay was written for coders, but I think it applies to anyone who's working to develop demanding skills that require focus, craftsmanship, and mental clarity. Solving interesting problems is a difficult thing. It takes patience, persistence, and a lot of effort. The same way that we should all be pushing our bodies to the limit on a regular basis, there is pleasure to be found in truly exercising our powers of creativity and intelligence. At some point, when I stop being lazy and scared, I'll begin undertaking the 4 skills in a hacker's basic toolkit. I'll put it all on video so you can learn from my pain and humiliation. Today, we've talked about the shortcomings of a traditional model of schooling. Why thinking like a hacker is the way forward, and the 5 pillars of the mindset needed to make progress toward that end. Please let me know if you liked what you saw. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.